This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Hello and welcome to The World Today. I'm Richard Nta in Nairobi. Here's what's ahead. The U.S. and NATO issue formal responses to Russia over Moscow's security demands regarding Ukraine. Burkina Faso's junta leaders meet ousted President Kabore's cabinet members as sources say Kabore still under house arrest. And in Syria, Kurdish-led forces say they've regained control of a prison that was attacked by the Islamic State. Once again, welcome to The World Today. Let's begin with the Wang Yi-Blinken phone call. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi has called on all sides involved in the Ukraine conflict to remain calm and avoid increasing tensions. He made the comment in a phone conversation with the U.S. Secretary of State. Anthony Blinken also said de-escalation and diplomacy are the responsible way forward. Washington says a massive gas pipeline running through Ukraine would not move forward if Russia invades the Ukraine. The U.S. State Department said Washington would work with Germany to ensure the Nord Stream 2 pipeline would be halted. The project is designed to increase gas flow from Russia to Germany. On Wednesday, the U.S. and NATO gave formal responses to Russia's demands for NATO to stop expanding eastward and rule out the possibility of Ukraine joining the alliance. Details have not been published, but U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken says the American response reiterated Washington's stance and sets out a path of diplomacy. Blinken will speak with his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov in the coming days.
Our response to Russia reflects what I said in Kyiv, Berlin, and Geneva last week. We're open to dialogue. We prefer diplomacy. And we're prepared to move forward where there is the possibility of communication and cooperation if Russia de-escalates its aggression toward Ukraine.
China has urged the United States to immediately correct its wrongdoing in trade practices against China. This comes a day after a World Trade Organization ruling that lets China impose tariffs on U.S. goods. Beijing says the ruling is important for correcting illegal countervailing practices of the United States and safeguarding the trade interests of Chinese firms. The Trump administration started a trade war with China by hiking tariffs on Chinese goods worth billions of dollars. President Joe Biden said last week he was not ready to lift the extra tariffs imposed on Chinese companies. And the U.S. State Department has condemned the Democratic People's Republic of Korea's latest missile test. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff say 2 projectiles were launched from the DPRK's coastal city of Hamhung Thursday morning. Washington says the launches violated multiple UN Security Council resolutions and brought threats to other countries. The projectiles are presumed to be short-range ballistic missiles. This is the 6th such launch this year. The DPRK said it conducted 4 missile tests earlier this month, including hypersonic missiles and tactical guided missiles. And in northeast Syria, U.S.-backed Kurdish forces say they have regained full control of a prison seized by the Islamic State. Officials say at least 200 inmates and 30 security forces have died in a week of fighting. The extremists had stormed the prison to free their members. The prison houses more than 3,000 inmates, including around 700 young boys whose families have joined the Islamic State. An estimated 10,000 suspected Islamic State militants have been held since 2019, and prison riots have been common. Well, more than 20 Congolese soldiers have reportedly been killed in an attack by the M23 rebel group on an army position in the eastern region of North Kivu. The attack was launched on Monday night in Nyesisi, near the Virunga National Park, a UNESCO-listed World Heritage Site. Clashes continued on Wednesday, according to local civil society and government sources. The DRC Army is yet to confirm the death toll. M23 is one of more than 120 armed groups which roam eastern DRC. It was defeated in 2013 after launching a rebellion. However, since November 2021, the group has been accused of resuming attacks on army positions in the eastern DRC. A spokesperson for the group, Willie Ngoma, told AFP that it was, quote, merely retaliating, close quote, against attacks launched by the Congolese army against its positions. More details on this coming up shortly in Africa Live. Well, the West African bloc ECOWAS will meet virtually on Friday to discuss Burkina Faso following a military coup on Monday. Reports say the ousted President Roch Kabore is physically well and is held by the army. Members of the ousted president's cabinet on Wednesday met with the military junta leaders, with sources saying they were told not to leave the country. There have been celebrations in the capital Ouagadougou by people backing the move. The military dissolved the government and suspended the constitution. Meanwhile, two groups in the country have come out to demand a return to constitutional order. The coup comes after months of growing frustration at the Kabore government's inability to stem a jihadist insurgency that racked the country, killing thousands of people. All right, let's go live to Burkina Faso's capital, Ouagadougou, where we have Tonga Kafando, a local journalist. He joins us via Skype. Mr. Kafando, welcome to The World Today. Thank you for joining us. There have been reports that a political party supporting the military has spoken about the coup. What details do we have about this?
Yes, here in Burkina Faso, we have three groups of political parties, three positions about the coup. The first group is the political party that was close to the ruling party. They have condemned the coup. And the second group is the opponent parties. Then they support the coup and say they support the militaries. The third group is the group of parties that were at the middle between the opponents and the former ruling party. They say they take note that they are waiting for the first step of the militaries.
All right, Tonga Kafando, thank you for bringing all that there to light. Now, that brings me to my next question. The regional bloc ECOWAS is set to meet tomorrow about the events in Burkina Faso. Are there any concerns in Ouagadougou about the possibility of sanctions as seen in other neighboring countries that have been sanctioned by ECOWAS?
Yes, there is concern because here in Burkina, we noticed what ECOWAS did with Mali, a neighboring country. So people are waiting for this meeting because they know ECOWAS will take sanctions against the military junta. But those who are supporting the coup says they are ready to support the military junta even with this sanction. They say the military have not to be afraid about this sanction because they will support them with the sanctions.
All right, Tonga Kafando, let's leave it there for now. Thank you so much for your insight and analysis. Moving along, more humanitarian aid is reaching Tonga. An Australian ship arrived on Wednesday. It delivered aid without human contact because about 24 COVID-19 cases were detected among the crew. The Australian government said it will widen its support, including helping to restore power and communications, storing and delivering relief supplies. Marian Coup has more.
I'm here at Buna Wharf, the capital of Nuku'alofa, here in Tonga. Behind me are two ships docking at our wharf from Fiji, consisting of supplies from the Chinese government. As you can see behind me, because due to COVID-19 restriction, we are not able to be allowed towards this cone to be able to see firsthand. But we were told supplies are in this shipment will be offloaded and into a designated place here for further quarantine of 3 days. These quarantine process are protocols to any vessels or any supplies coming into our shores. I was told a supply worth of 1 million yen, which consists of water, food, electricity generators, water pumps, PPEs, and so much more. This is the second batch of supply aid from the government of China. The first supply aid was presented to the government of Tonga here at the embassy on Wednesday last week in Nuku'alofa. This is the second batch of supplies from the government of Tonga arriving on our shores. We're also looking forward to another batch of supplies by plane Friday the 28th here in our international airport. China has been very promptly aiding Tonga here on ground, Tonga Tapu, and also incoming supplies. It was also confirmed that these are not the only supplies that we will be receiving from the government of China. There will be more on the way in the near future. We will be keeping you updated here on the ground from Nuku'alofa, Tonga. My name is Marianne Kupu, CGTV Tonga.
Well, that's it for this edition of The World Today. I'll be back shortly with more news from the continent in Africa Live. Thanks for watching.
So this is it. I'm just about to be shot.
The tents here, bottles are being thrown as they do so.
There are about 3 critical bridges here in Malawi. That's one of them. We're going to cross that bridge.
As you can see behind me, police forces
Who are replying with gas. Gas just came in.
gas, so it's all begun now.
Divisions leading the charge into West Mosul have brought us here.
Just got to be careful here with some gunshots.
This is where most of the fighting has been concentrated.
is the front line now after 9 days of fighting.
We're about 2 to 3 kilometers from the
Within
front
clear
line.
view of this front line position.
This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
The latest from the DR Congo, where at least 20 soldiers have been killed in clashes with rebels. The Somali government and African Union conclude consultations on how to reconfigure AU mission to Somalia. Learning paralyzed in Ghana's public universities as teachers go on strike to demand payment. Hello and welcome to Africa Live. As always, great to have you with us. I'm Richard Nta, live in Nairobi. And for those of you joining us from across the continent and around the globe, we thank you for joining us. Let's take a look at other stories making headlines this hour. Sudan seeks to more than double tax revenue to finance its budget. And in sports, Egypt, Equatorial Guinea booked quarterfinal spots in the Africa Cup of Nations after penalty shootouts. Once again, welcome to Africa Live. Great to have you along with me for this hour. Let's begin. More than 20 Congolese soldiers have reportedly been killed in an attack by the M23 rebel group on an army position in the eastern region of North Kivu. The attack was launched on Monday night in Nyesi, near the Virunga National Park, a UNESCO-listed World Heritage Site. Clashes continued on Wednesday, according to local civil society and government sources. The DRC Army is yet to confirm the death toll. The M23 is one of more than 120 armed groups which roam eastern DRC. It was defeated in 2013 after launching a rebellion. However, since November 2021, the group has been accused of resuming attacks on army positions in eastern DRC. A spokesman for the group, Willie Ngoma, told the AFP that it was, quote, merely retaliating, close quote, against attacks launched by the Congolese army against its positions. All right, let's go live to Kinshasa, where our correspondent Chris Ochemringa is standing by. Chris, welcome to Africa Live. Thank you for joining us. Chris, what more do we know about these killings and the suspected perpetrators? Chris?
Well, this attack happened in North Kivu province, an area known as Nyesisi. According to a civil society organization over there, gunmen raided a Congolese military base at night on Monday night and killed 29 officers, including a Congolese colonel known as Josue Nduma. And these civil society organization says that these fighters belong to the M23 rebel group. This is a rebel group that is composed largely of ethnic Tutsis. It was formed in 2009 after the fighters of this group disagreed with the government of former President Joseph Kabila regarding a peace deal that they signed earlier on. And so there's a lot of fighting. People are reported to have fled that area, and the locals in there are hoping that the government, can contain this situation. Richard?
Chris, with all that you've said, what is the official word from the government on what the fighting is all about?
So according to a senior government official we spoke to, he's called Lieutenant Colonel Guillaume Njike, the battle is ongoing right now. They are fighting against the rebels. They say they cannot give an official account of the casualties or the victims in this fighting, but they will later on give an account of what has happened. They're also still not sure about which particular group these fighters are, but they are doing their very best to ensure that peace is restored in that area. Now, that part of the DRC has very many rebel groups, like the FDLR, which is a group that's composed largely of Hutus from neighboring Rwanda. They operate around that area, and then there are other Mai groups that have been operating in that area for a very long time. And people, the residents there, have borne the brunt of, attacks from these rebel groups. They have been calling on the government, to secure their area. We know that, the Ugandan government is now supporting the DRC army to launch an offensive against another rebel group. This is the Allied Democratic Forces that is accused of carrying out many attacks. Now, the M23, denounced the rebellion in 2013 after the they had been defeated by a joint force of the UN and the Congolese army. But last November, they carried out more attacks. They took over 4 villages in the North Kivu province, temporarily forcing thousands of people to flee to neighboring Uganda. The people in that area are just hoping that the government will be able to restore peace very soon. Richard?
All right, Chris Ochemringa, let's leave it there for now. Thank you so much for that update and report. In other news, French President Emmanuel Macron has recognized as an unforgivable act the killing of 49 Algerian protesters in 1962 when the nation was under French rule. French troops fired on demonstrators who were protesting to maintain French rule over Algeria. Historians, however, estimate the actual number of victims was between 60 and 80. France fought a war from 1954 to 1962 to maintain its colonial rule over the North African country. At the end of the war, as Algeria gained independence, close to 800,000 French citizens were repatriated to France. Macron has pointedly tried to distance France from dark pages of its recent history. In May of last year, he, for instance, asked for Rwandans' forgiveness for France's role in the 1994 genocide.
La suite, ce fut notamment.
What came after was the shooting of Isley Street on March 26, 1962. On that day, the soldiers of the 4th Tirailleur Regiment, a French army unit, fired on a crowd of supporters, marking their support for French Algeria, and inspired the OAS, who were trying to lift the blockade on the Bab El Oued neighborhood. 60 years later, France recognizes this tragedy. I say it strongly and clearly today. The March 26, 1962 massacre is unforgivable for the Republic. All the French archives on this tragedy will be opened to be consulted and studied freely.
Pourront être consultés.
The Somali government and the African Union have concluded consultations to reconfigure the AU mission to Somalia. The deliberations in Addis Ababa focus on the mandate of AMISOM as well as strategic end state and transitional phases. Here's Mohamed Kahie with the details.
The Somali government and African Union reportedly agreed on a framework for AU mission in Somalia in the next 3 months after meeting in AU headquarters in Addis Ababa last week. According to documents seen online, the new AU mission will transition from AMISOM to ATMIS, that is AU Transitional Mission to Somalia. Analysts say the agreement, which is yet to be signed, will pave way for close coordination between Somali security forces and AU peacekeepers.
The new agreement will revise the mandate of AMISOM. For example, the 2 agencies will jointly coordinate in security operations. Also significant to note in the agreement is mission support to both the Somali and AU forces from international agencies such as the UN, which was limited to AMISOM before.
In March this year, AMISOM will mark 15 years since its deployment in Somalia. But according to analysts, local politics has been a challenge to peacekeeping operations.
The unstable political scene in the country has partially contributed to AMISOM peacekeeping operations in failing to achieve the main mandate of dislodging the armed group Al-Shabaab across the country, and also successfully rebuilding and training Somali armed forces, thus recurrent unstable politics, leading to unreliable security, economy, and stability.
Citizens have welcomed the new agreement, but called for more support for Somali armed forces and withdrawal of peacekeepers.
I have a view of pulling AMISOM peacekeepers out of the country and providing the same support and better equipment to Somali forces that are trained and deploy them to areas managed by AMISOM after they withdraw.
There are more than 20,000 African Union peacekeepers in Somalia from 6 troop-contributing countries, mainly from neighboring states. Since their deployment, they tried to push Al-Shabaab from key areas in the country. But the threat from Al-Shabaab still remains very high. Mohamed Kahie, CGTN, Mogadishu, Somalia.
Teachers at public universities across Ghana are staging an indefinite strike. They say the government isn't paying them their full allowances. The situation has disrupted all academic work into the universities. CGTN's Nabil Akman Rufai reports from Accra.
Public universities across Ghana reopened for a new academic term early January. but lecture halls remain shut because teachers are on strike.
Currently, we are doing nothing. Is either you try going to the Bamlabi to study on your own, or better still, you just stay in your rooms and do extra activities you think would make you get entertained.
Members of the University Teachers Association of Ghana walked off the job after the government failed to restore their conditions of service. The problem stems from 2014, when the government stopped paying lecturers their market premium, which is a percentage of their basic salary, because they are considered highly skilled labor.
I think what I expect the politician of today to tell us is to admit and concede the inequities within our salary structures and to look at a more holistic way of attempting to address such inequities.
The National Labour Commission has urged the university teachers to call off the strike because it is illegal. As the teachers' strike continues, public universities across Ghana risk a total shutdown. By convention, university campuses are required to close down after 21 days without academic activities. The strike has left students worried that the academic calendar will be disrupted.
We spent like almost a year or two at home without education going on, and now the education is back to its grounds. Teachers are going on strike, so it's just like one issue being solved, then another issue coming up again, which is prolonging our education system.
But the lecturers say they are not backing down until their concerns are addressed.
When academic calendar destabilizes, we draft academic calendars. We can always restructure it.
While it is unclear when the teachers will call off the strike, university students hope the situation will be resolved soon so that they can continue with their studies. Nabil Ahmed Rufai, CGTN, Accra, Ghana.
The news continues on Africa Live. We'll see you on the other side of the break with more news stories. Here's what's ahead. The International Maritime Bureau hails governments and international naval vessels for reduced piracy in the Gulf of Guinea. Welcome back to Africa Live. Thanks for staying with us. The Gulf of Guinea, considered the most dangerous waters in the world, witnessed a drastic reduction of piracy in 2021. And that's according to global maritime watchdog, the International Maritime Bureau, IMB. From 81 in 2020, the number of incidents in the region declined to 34 in 2021. The IMB attributes the positive results to actions taken by governments of the region, as well as increased presence of international naval vessels who are working alongside regional partners to end the piracy in the region. CGTN's Deji Badamosi has more on this report.
For a number of years, the Gulf of Guinea has held on to the infamous record of being the most dangerous waters in the world. The situation hit a record in 2020, when the region accounted for over 95% of crew numbers kidnapped globally, with a record 130 crew members kidnapped in 22 separate incidents. But the last 1 year has seen authorities of the region, in collaboration with some international partners, redouble efforts in the fight against piracy. And those efforts now appear to be yielding results. From 81 incidents in 2020, the number dropped to 34 in 2021. Crew kidnapping has also fallen from a high of 135 to 57. Despite the significant reduction, Shipa Aminu Umar says much still needs to be done to rid the Gulf of Guinea of sea pirates.
The Navy are doing their best, but the water is huge, it's a vast area, and there are so much number of vessels. They cannot be able to provide security for the entire vessels that are coming into the country. There is need to license some private sector operators to look at how to go about this.
Last year, Nigeria launched what it calls the Deep Blue Project, a security infrastructure with capacity to monitor activities on its waterways and deter piracy. Authorities say the reduction in piracy in 2021 is a sign the security assets are working.
These assets include 2 special mission aircraft, 2 special mission vessels, 3 special mission helicopters, 24 hours C4I dedicated center that look after the technological aspect of the intelligence gathering. We also have about 16 armored tanks located in different parts of the creeks so that we can understand what is happening outside our territorial water.
The European Union has also been carrying out anti-piracy patrols in the Gulf of Guinea in the last 2 years. It says it will continue with the patrols for another 2 years with more deployments. Some experts, though, think additional measures are still required nonetheless.
So we should have also adopt a short-term solution. And one of it is to license or make sure that there is escort that is supposed to protect those ships. When there is a licensed escort service providers within the Gulf of Guinea that are licensed for the entire region, then it makes it impossible for attacks to be so frequent. While in the long term, this huge contract or big system put in place by the government comes into play, then these things will solve itself and it will be over.
While seafarers still face threats in the Gulf of Guinea, maritime industry players are hoping the reduction in the number of incidents recorded last year continues into this year. If it does, then the Gulf of Guinea may be on course to ridding itself of that infamous tag of being the world's most dangerous waters for seafarers. DG Badimasi, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
Kenya's malaria response has evolved through the years as the East African country implements tailored interventions for specific regions. And the incorporation of genome sequencing of malaria parasites and mosquitoes is giving fresh hope to Kenyan scientists in the campaign to eliminate malaria. CGTN's Enoch Sokolia reports.
In the last few weeks, this hospital in Kericho town in Kenya's Rift Valley region has seen the deadly effects of malaria. On this day, 39 people had been hospitalized after developing symptoms.
We are addressing all the public in general to take precautions in preventive measures for malaria.
According to government data, 3 in 4 Kenyans are at constant risk from malaria. Kenya's path to elimination of malaria is lined with visible prevention methods. With scientific advancement and research like genome sequencing key to fighting the disease.
Genome sequencing, a lot of molecular work that is being done here at Cambridge. Most of it came courtesy of COVID, which is a blessing. We are looking at the parasite, malaria parasite, looking at the various drug resistance in a way to know the effectiveness of the drugs that are there, and also to look at the mutations or the genome that have changed over time.
Through the help of the Chinese government, Kenya established a malaria reference center that has helped scientists enhance their diagnostic skills. Besides that, Kenya has developed malaria rapid test kits that will be rolled out in February.
So if you use that a test kit and somebody has malaria, you can quickly identify somebody who has malaria. And that is very useful for use in remote areas or in lower facilities that don't have electricity and they have no access to microscope.
Globally, the estimated number of malaria deaths stood at 627,000 in 2020, according to WHO. 96% of the deaths were reported in Africa. Dr. Ahwale says Africa is applying a broad range of preventive measures tailored to local needs. For example, the use of insecticide-treated bed nets and preventive doses of an anti-malarial drug.
This is especially in the Sahel region, in countries like Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, where the rains are highly seasonal and malaria is just occurs immediately after the rains. So what they do, they ensure they give people, the population there, some treatment before the rains come so that when the parasites affect you, then they get prevention already in you.
Experts say the biggest challenge in fighting malaria in Africa is lack of resources. Enoch Sikolia, CGTN, Nairobi.
Time now for our business segment. Here's a look at the headlines. Sudan seeks to more than double tax revenue to finance its budget. And Kenya joins the global push to promote the use of electric vehicles.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Kanata, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Welcome back to Africa Live. We certainly appreciate your company. Let's begin in Uganda, where the country's government plans to focus economic efforts towards aiding pandemic recovery. This is as it begins the process of formulating the 2022-23 national budget. The Ministry of Finance says the priority of the new $12.2 billion budget will be health, social protection, security, and infrastructural development. CGTN's Michael Baleke reports.
The government wants a budget to cater for those sectors that can quickly salvage the economy from the COVID-19 crisis. The Ministry of Finance says priority will be to bring people into a formal economy so that more Ugandans can get money into their pockets.
We would want to see every Ugandan in the monetized economy. And this we are going to do through scaling up commercial agriculture, industrialization, based on our comparative advantage in agriculture, in minerals, in oil and gas, market access, and digital transformation.
In Uganda, the COVID-19 pandemic reduced demand due to a decline in domestic consumption, slowed down private and public investment, lowered the country's exports in regional and international markets, and reduced foreign direct investment flows. The ensuing lockdown to mitigate the pandemic also caused the reduction in trade and constrained the movement of people, further dampening businesses' economic prospects. And the government believes the repurposing of the budget will help Uganda avoid more borrowing to handle priority expenditure.
We shall only borrow for those activities which we feel we cannot do within our means. I told the country one time that this is a time for tightening our belts, of getting back a fiscal discipline, of ensuring that whatever shilling we spend is going to those very areas that we need.
Uganda's total public debt jumped 27.4% to $19.5 billion by June 2021 from $15.3 billion a year before, most of it to build big infrastructure projects. This week, Uganda announced the full reopening of its economy following 2 years of COVID-19 lockdown restrictions. the government is optimistic that the reopening of the economy will improve the country's revenue collections to fund critical areas. However, the civil society organizations say the government needs to fix certain areas where it is losing a lot of money, like in poor project selection, delayed execution of projects, inefficient planning, and outright fraud.
We need the projects to work and function because a number of projects are not performing well. They are far below, and yet we are paying commitment fees. We need to work on that, improving their performance. Number two, we need a price list in this country because without a price list of government, people continue to cheat us in the procurement process.
The government believes economic growth is expected to rebound from 4.2% this financial year to 6% in the financial year 2022-2023. But this would be at risk if new COVID waves arrived, which could see the government collecting lower domestic revenues than planned. Michael Baleke, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
Still in the country, Uganda wants to curb its borrowing and boost exports in the meat and dairy sectors as the country lifts itself out of the pandemic. President Yoweri Museveni says he wants to expand the country's trade. Uganda used to sell milk to Kenya, but Kenya restricted sales in 2019. Uganda's milk exports are now 50% of what they used to be before the coronavirus curbs. Museveni also plans to add value to other agricultural exports such as coffee, which has long been one of Uganda's main foreign exchange earners. Uganda's trade push follows several years of reduced lending and as programs designed to offer relief from COVID-19 induced slumps start to expire.
Uganda can do much better without borrowing, in my opinion, especially borrowing for what they call budget support, balance of payment support. We don't think that is good borrowing. But we shall manage because now the economy has been growing at like roughly 4% without tourism, without transport fully, without the hotels. Now they are opening up, so the economy will resume fast growth.
Well, economic experts are slamming Sudan's 2022 budget. The budget seeks to more than double tax revenue to replace foreign aid and suspended after the October's coup. The government plans include a 145% rise in tax revenue and an increase in gold exports to cover key commodities like wheat and fuel, which could face difficulties. Critics say the plan will likely fuel more turmoil and anger against the ruling military. The country has already revised down its growth target to 1.4% and is racing to find the means to fund this year's $8.3 billion spending plan. And in Kenya, the country has joined the global push to promote the use of electric vehicles and reduce reliance on petrol and diesel. International EV startups have been entering the country, and Troops No PRI is one of them and is now playing a key role in reducing emissions from Nairobi's notorious traffic. CGTN's Najma Abdur-Rasak reports.
Driving around Nairobi and squeezing through its famous traffic gives an indication of just why the Kenyan capital ranks among the most polluted cities in the world. Idle engines belching clouds of black smoke, a common sight hard to ignore. But not far from these congested roads, a new partnership between EcoRent, Africa's fast all-electric ride-hailing taxi firm, and one of Kenya's leading universities is looking to reduce and improve Nairobi's air quality.
One of the research centers we have in the university deals on renewable energy, particularly solar energy. And so this project actually is aligned to that, in that we'll be using this project not only to harness, but also to use that energy in these electrical cars. So very much in line with what the world is thinking about.
EcoRent, under its parent company Nopia Ride, currently runs an electric taxi fleet service in Kenya. Its latest solar hub adds to the growing network of charging stations the Finnish company has introduced across Nairobi since entering the Kenyan market back in 2018. And according to its founder and CEO, the next step for Nopia Ride is to now go 100% green as it bets on solar energy.
Today this agreement is signed and we start the work, and this is the way it should go. So I think that the world needs to understand that combining clean mobility, electric vehicles and solar energy or renewable energy is something that has to happen in order if we want to fight this climate combat.
The current electric vehicle push in Kenya comes as the country looks to cut emissions by 32% by 2030. Electric vehicles currently make up a small percentage of all vehicles sold here in Kenya. But things are fast changing, and as more and more Kenyans become carbon cautious, they're expected to abandon these fossil fuel burners to get behind the wheel of an electric car. When it comes to accelerating electric mobility, the Kenyan government, for its part, has taken steps that include a lower import duty of 20% for EVs compared with 30% for petrol and diesel vehicles. It's also currently working on a policy that's set to guide tariffs for recharging and licensing of electric vehicles, a move championed by climate activists.
We're already producing more energy than we use in Kenya, and that energy could actually be utilized in electrical cars instead of petroleum, which we are importing. So just lowering the taxes in Kenya for electric cars would have the benefits of not only creating more jobs, which will happen, but additionally reducing the amount of, let's say, foreign currency we need to import oil to this country, and not to mention the impact it has on the environment.
In the meantime, as Kenya now moves towards meeting its climate goals, more and more international EV startups like EcoRent are expected to set base in the country and together build a clean mobility future. Najma Abdirizak, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
And we are not done just yet. We've got your sports news coming up after the break. Stay with us. In sports, Egypt, Equatorial Guinea booked quarterfinal spots in the Africa Cup of Nations after penalty shootouts.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a player? Could this moment be yours? Sports Scene. Find